insurance and how that all factors in. One of the most difficult situations people face is when they get injured on a family member's property or by a family member. It's an uncomfortable topic, but people need to know their options. So let's talk about suing a family member. You have an interesting case you want to share that your client got a large settlement. So walk us kind of through that case and how insurance factored into that.
So we're going to carve out, for purposes of this conversation today, claims between parents and children and husbands and wives, particularly in auto accidents. Those are different scenarios. We're going to set those aside for perhaps discussion on another day and another video. Today, we're just going to focus on general liability claims between what we'll refer to as extended family members. So in the one unusual case I had involving a very close-knit family, involved two cousins. And they were, I believe, about 14 and 15 at the time. My client, I believe, was 14 and his cousin was 15. But these two were raised basically as brothers. They lived very close by to one another. Their mothers were sisters and they were very close. And so these families, although, again, extended, technically speaking, right, aunts and nieces and nephews and so forth, they were very close. And the boys got their hands on what are called airsoft guns. They're basically motorized BB guns. They're much more powerful than just like the old hand cocked ones that we used to have growing up, like the almost like 22 style.
Right.
The boys were basically having BB gun fights with these hopped up airsoft guns, and my client basically had his eye shot out. It was not intentional. It was just kids being kids, boys being boys, if you will. And he ended up having a very serious eye operation to replace, I believe it was his cornea. It was a serious injury. So when the boy and his parents came to meet with me, I mean, they were beside themselves. The bills were substantial. They were absolutely at a loss for what had happened, and they didn't really know what to do. They asked what their options were, and I laid them out very plainly. Once I realized that perhaps my client's sister and brother-in-law weren't minding the home properly, or maybe they didn't realize what the heck was going on, I explained pretty plainly that this is just a negligence case. It's a negligent supervision case. I mean, yes, the boys are 14 and 15. They're not little ones, but as you could obviously see, they made some very bad decisions that day, and they were very careless in what they decided to do with their free time. I had to walk my clients, who were essentially the mother and the father of the boy who was injured, through the paces and explain to them, this is what could happen, right? We sent letters to your sister and your brother-in-law. We would have to sue them, just like we would have to sue anybody else who was negligent if they were strangers and this happened. It's the same process. But as you can imagine, the emotional entanglements were much more complicated. This was a very, very hard decision for them to come to. But at the end of the day, they had their own son to take care of. They had their own child to take care of. And I believe that's what factored in their decision to proceed. And proceed we did. There was a lot of emotional testimony in the form of depositions through my clients and, of course, the defendants, who were, again, my client's sister and brother-in-law and nephew. It was hard for them. This was not an easy thing, but like I said, my client, the boy who was injured, he had a major injury to his eye. He needed a lot of help. He had an operation, maybe even two, I can't remember, but he had a cornea replacement. It was very difficult.
Yes.
Then there was a twist.